everybody, welcome back to another Miss Pollard Math YouTube video. Today we're going to be going over consecutive integer word problems, and something that's very important is to figure out what these two words mean. So the word consecutive means in a row. So if we're talking about 1, then the next consecutive number is 2, then 3, then 4 if we're dealing with integers. So that's another important point. What are integers? So integers are our whole numbers, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to a billion, quadrillion, whatever we want to think of. And then it's also our negative ones. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, all the way down to negative a billion, quadrillion, whatever. So it has to be important that we note that these answers are not going to be fractions. They're not going to be decimals. They have to be our integer values. So if you get that answer, you did something wrong. So let's take a look of how we would break up these problems, how we are going to execute these problems, and what it means to do when we're given this problem. So consecutive integers, like I said, a consecutive integer is in a row. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, those are consecutive integers. They're in a row. So when we're working with them mathematically, we are going to label them as n plus 1, n plus 2. You could label them any variable you want. You could do x plus 1, x plus 2. We just do n for like number, but n plus 1, n plus 2, where n is any type of integer value. So for example, if my n is 5, 5 plus 1 is 6. 5 plus 2 is 7. So we have 5, 6, 7, which are in a row of our consecutive integer values. It's important that we are labeling these when we're working with them. If I see the word consecutive integer, just plain consecutive integer, I'm going to write on my paper n plus 1, n plus 2. It could even be n plus 3. We can keep on going for as many numbers as they ask for us, but I like to write it down so I remember if my n is 5, I have to plug it into all of the rest to figure out what the other integers are. The other type is consecutive even or odd integers. So for these, we use n plus 2, n plus 4, and so on. That could be the next one's n plus 6, n plus 8. So the reason why we do this is consecutive even means the even numbers in a row. So 2, then goes 4, then goes 6, then goes 8. If we're even thinking bigger, 24, the next one's 26. So if my n is 24, that's 24. Plug it in, that's 26. Plug it in, 24 plus 4 is 28. Well, 24, 26, 28 are consecutive even integers. They're in a row, and it's just the evens. If you get one even and one odd, that has to be incorrect because it's asking for consecutive even. And the same thing occurs with odd. Let's say my n is 17. Well, 17 plus 2 is 19. 17 plus 4 is 21. Well, 17, 19, 21 are all consecutive odd integers. We also have to note if we're asking for consecutive odd and you do the problem and get even numbers, and something must be wrong. We're going to have to reevaluate that. Or if it's asking for consecutive odd and you get consecutive regular, like 4, 5, 6, something else is wrong as well. So these are the main points we have to remember when we're completing this problem. We also need to think about it, especially when we're working with our negatives. If my n, let's say for consecutive integers, is negative 3, then I do negative 3 plus 1, that's negative 2. That's not negative 4. So we're not getting smaller, we're getting bigger. So I always like to plug it in appropriately, because if not, you're going to get the wrong answer. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. We don't go the opposite way. So always, I like to write it down on my paper so I see visually what I'm plugging in and get my other answers. Let's try a problem and see how we would complete this. So we have this problem to try. It says find 3 consecutive integers if the sum of twice the first and 4 times the second is equal to 20 more than twice the third. So for this problem, we are working with consecutive integers, just plain consecutive integers. So I am saying 3 of them. So my first one is n, then n plus 1, then n plus 2. So those are the 3 I'm working with. Now let's read it like a word problem and see what we would do. The sum, well, I know sum means addition. So the sum of twice the first, that means 2 times the first, which is n. So 2 times n, sum means addition, so plus 4 times the second. Well, the second is n plus 1. I'm doing 4 times the second. I'm not doing 4 times just n. I have to do 4 times the whole thing. So I have to put it in parentheses. 4n plus 1 is equal to 20 more than, so that means 20 plus or you could put the plus 20 at the end, either way, same answer. 20 more than twice the third. Well, this is the third, so 2 times it is n plus 2. And now we're going to solve this equation like we normally would, and this is why it's important we know how to solve equations, because without that, we wouldn't be able to continue the problem. So I'm going to get 2n plus 4n plus 4 equals 20 plus 2n plus 4. Combine my like terms. I get 6n plus 4 equals 24 plus 2n. I like to move my smaller variable term over, so I'm going to subtract 2n. And I get 4n. I could subtract 4 up here, equals 20. So I get n equals 5. I plug it in. 5. 5 plus 1 equals 6. 5 plus 2 equals 7. So my 3 consecutive integers are 5, 6, and 7. And we can test this out. The sum, so the addition of twice the first, 2 times 5 is 10. Plus 4 times the second. 4 times 6 is 24. So this is 34. Equals 20 more than twice the third. Well, twice the third is 14. So 20 plus 14, which is 34. So there's ways to check your answers to make sure you're doing this correctly. When I plugged in my work and thought of it logically, that is correct. Let's try a problem now where we're going to be working with consecutive odd or even. Let's see what it's going to be. So now for this problem, we're using consecutive odd. So it says find 3 consecutive odd numbers, integers, such that the sum of 3 times the second number and twice the third number is 7 times the first number, the first integers. We're working with consecutive odd integers. So my first one is going to be n plus 2, n plus 4. So 3 times the second. This is the second, so 3 times n plus 2. We have the sum, so that means addition. Twice the third, so 2 times n plus 4 is 7 times the first, which is 7n. And there may be times where they only tell us about 3 times the first and 3 times the third, which would be a little weird, but they might not even talk about the second term. It's okay if you have a problem that doesn't discuss one of the terms. You still need to find it, but it might not be in a relation to each other. So obviously it will be like 4, 6, 8, but it's not going to be like, oh, 3 times of this plus this. It might just be in relation to the first and the third, have some relation together, create an equation and solve. Now I'm going to distribute. I get 3n plus 6 plus 2n plus 8 equals 7n. This gives me, combine like terms, 5n plus 14 equals 7n. Subtract 5n, I get 14 equals 2n, so my n is 7. Which makes sense, we're talking about odd integers. So I have 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. 7 plus 4 is 11. And if we check that, we have 3 times the second, which is 27, plus 2 times the last, which is 22, equals 7 times the first, which is 49. So this gives me 49 equals 49. So I have my right answer. So I hope this was helpful on figuring out consecutive integers, odd or even, and how you would set up these word problems to be successful.